adjudicator, to my fellow debaters and to all the people present in this activity. To our adjudicator, to my fellow debaters and to all the people present in this activity. A very pleasant day to each. To our adjudicator, to my fellow debaters and to all the people present in this activity. A very pleasant day to each and every one of you. Activism is defined as taking a vigorous action to bring about the change and the transformation our society needs. It consists of efforts to promote, impede or direct social, political, economic, and environmental change. It is a realization that we are involved in humanity, society, and service for the country. Hence, this House believes that we must support activism. First and foremost, we are living in a country dubbed as democratic, wherein every citizen has the freedom to express themselves. If the so-called activists exercise this right through conducting different kinds of protests, what right do we have to stop them? After all, they're not tolerating the blazing heat of the sun and the cold drizzling of the rain, doing these rallies just for selfish reasons. Instead, they're doing this to incite change in our society and persuade their people to do the same. Moreover, it is another way of protecting the oppressed from the oppressors. From the word itself, ladies and gentlemen, activist. Our country needs active citizens in taking action for the betterment of our society and eventually the lives of our people. And with these, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that each and every one of us must be an activist in our own little way. Your point, ma'am.
How do you assure that activism is really a solution to the problems of our country?
First of all, I didn't say that activism, most especially that of the explicit one, is the lone solution to the problems of our society. But madam, just like what I've said earlier, activism might and would initiate the change and the transformation our country needed. Activism may not be alone the solution we seek, but it will persuade our countrymen to find the solution and do the same. So to sum my answer up, Ms. Parambita, I cannot assure you that activism is the solution itself to the problems of our society, but it surely is the beginning to the solution we all need. So moving on, activism may come in an implicit form through performing arts, visual arts, and literary arts. But ladies and gentlemen, I am challenging everybody in this room to think thoroughly. Would this be enough? Would painting a certain societal issue in a canvas or performing it on a stage be adequate to upstart the change it yearns? Would poetry or a song be enough to safeguard the beleaguered from their aggressors? No. Then, can we blame those aggressive ones who conduct rallies, boycotts, and strikes in public places? Who burn effigies and who shout at the top of their lungs the things they're fighting for? If this is what it takes to cut the attention of the leaders of this country, who are deliberately shutting their eyes and ears to these people, why should we stop them? Like for instance, the recent issue in the Polytechnic University of the Philippines of activists hurling the armchairs from the fourth floor and burning them to ashes. If not for these protests, perhaps the 12 pesos per unit policy of the university has long been gone. Perhaps this government educational institution would have been partially privatized, if not fully. Did this action raise awareness? Yes. Did this protect the inferior people concerned? Yes. But despite all the benefits and the positive result it procured, the only thing other people see is the action itself. Thanks to the clueless and narrow-minded people, activists are already associated with a bad image they so do not deserve. Activists almost sacrifice themselves for the sake of the improvement of our nation. They put their lives into risk just to make the people realize what our country needs for the advancement of this nation. Activists serve as good instruments of change in the world. With these reasons and examples, ladies and gentlemen, therefore, this House strongly supports activists and activism. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning to my fellow debaters. It is true that activism involves efforts to promote or direct social, political, economic, or environmental change. It is a way of being cooperative and participative that activists are active from the word itself in humanity, society, and service, and they want is to be instrument of change in the world. Actually, there's nothing wrong about being activists, especially if all they want is for the sake of the improvement of a community or society. Imposing those implicit ways like writing to a newspaper, web blogging, forums, or comments is truly enough. Then an action should be done afterwards within the activist himself. Besides, they should not just do or persuade people for a change, rather take themselves as good examples first before trying to influence others. If people see that you are a good influencer, then you should be a good follower. The way the activists promote their advocacies, not just in an implicit way but through explicit way as well, no matter how destructive it may be, as the other side has said a while ago, is the reason why this House will not support the activists. They want to promote change to the manner that they already tend not to think first of the reasons behind and ensure the possible consequences before they act. In addition to why activism should be in explicit way to the point that it's being destructive and it's tolerated. Instead of promoting change and improvement, they are promoting harm and do no good to the society. It is true that we have democratic form of government. We have the freedom to express ourselves in ways we want. However, activists should have the limits, for they don't have the ability to control their impulses to the point that they are already wanting change in aggressive ways, bringing a negative impact on the community. Then, how can they be of help?
Point out.
Yes, madam.
You said that explicit activism brings negative impact to society. But how can you be so sure of this statement if it is the most effective way of making the officials listen to the issue or the problems they're fighting for?
Well, Madam Zosimo, rallies, street marches, boycotts are just some examples of explicit activism. Now, these explicit ways can bring negative impact to the community even though it's the only way of making officials the issues they're fighting for. They say that they want to promote change, a good change. But the nuisance they will bring will be just an additional to the problem instead of being a part of the solution. Now, in order to promote change, why do they need to shout at the top of their lungs? Or why do they have to make exposures and make some wild actions? Isn't it that it is enough that we should be the ones to take the action? Besides, the government doesn't need those activists. Let us just help by being good citizens. And now, going back, let us take the PUP and activists for example. There are only almost 10% of the students here in university that are considered as protesters and the rest are not. And what these activists do to promote change, to be active in the society for the purpose of persuasion, there is nothing wrong about being an instrument of change, but their way of promoting change already has led to several consequences. That consequences has already been disseminated through media, resulting a bad reputation and image of their university. They tend to throw off those chairs from the 6th floor or burn them down without thinking that those chairs can still be used and recycled for the fact that PUP is lacking its facilities. What about those rallies they usually involve with? They are just like acting wild animals in order to persuade those in authorities to do good. Instead of making the university a prestigious one, they just making it messy and putting it into bad reputation. Now, what about those students who are applying for on-the-job trainings? Some companies would not be able to entertain students who come from PUP because of the bad image that was brought about by those protesters who were not able to think of the possible consequences of their advocacies. Besides, being an activist is not just about being participative, but for an individual to be a good instrument of change. He or she should put into practice what he or she wants for the society. The change starts within themselves and not from persuasion. Because a good leader is a good follower. That's all. Thank you.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Promoting and directing a political, social, environmental, and economic change is one major role of activism. As we, being the generation that initiates change, and activism being directed to delivering change to the system, we, therefore, also serve to be activists as we claim change to take place in their own selves. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, this House support the activists. The involvement of the citizens of our country, the Philippines, in leading to change have been very visible these recent times. From those farmers who just want to have meals on their own tables, those drivers who plea for lower oil price, to those students who cry for their tuition fees to increase in no certain amount, generally by catching the upper's attention through explicit activism. Through the unusual and odd affairs, these activists greatly apprehends the eyes and the ears of the higher people and of the public. These so-called activists plainly exercise their freedom of expression, favored to them by the democracy which had been fought for and was exchanged with the lives of our honorable heroes, spearheaded by the ex-President Corazon. Lucky enough, Filipinos, as you may know, have been given the privilege to express their opinions and thoughts about several issues concerning them and their existence. This right is what these activists are all about. What should we do with this very precious right that other country has no benefit of? It hadn't been spoon-fed or wasn't just inserted into the Constitution just by somebody in just months now. It has been invested with sweat and blood. Activism, as you may be acquainted with, can take a wide range of forms, from those courageous and hushed writings of letters, books, and or articles containing the opinions and ideas, argues of the actives, to those loud and conspicuous rallies, street marches, and hunger strikes. Implicit activism, as you were proposing, madam, isn't enough. Yes, it is also used for expressing opinions and carrying out messages from a number of concerned people to the other, but do you think it's going to be as useful and as operational as the explicit ones? Are you going to take time deciphering a hidden message from some sort of implicit activism, as you may call it, to have the immediate change and the needed action at the very moment you need it? They will hear you, they will see you, but are you sure that they will act upon what you plead if you just do it on a paper or have it painted or such? You have to have that very special skill or an intriguing piece or maybe a VIP friend that's in the business with the uppers to acquire a drop of attention from them as you being an ordinary citizen of this country. However, most of the oppressed people in our country are those who didn't have enough education. How can palm paintings and such lower the oil price or the tuition fee? Ladies and gentlemen, how are they going to protect their rights with the implicit activism that you, Ms. Opposition Leader, are talking about? Few of them may know how to write or read. Few of them may really understand what's happening. And so we, as those favored enough and knows more, should definitely be the one aiding and guiding them to their better future. As their brothers and sisters, we should be the one helping them to fight for their rights. We should be one of them in this journey. And again, ladies and gentlemen, explicit activism is more effective and efficient. Even the media takes place in covering rallies and strikes than going into art exhibits and reading booklets. They pour more attention, more eyes, more ears to those who protest that greatly capture their attention. There was once this artist, Medeo Cruz, who entered the media when he crossed the line between art and religion, but not everybody have been part of it. Implicit activism probably will be having selective audience, and the message may not be interpreted and relayed accurately. It can also be just a reverie for several concerned people since they protest quietly and indirectly. Realistic effort is what we need in this point of time. Explicit activism isn't just destructive. Yes, at times, just like what happened to the Polytechnic University of the Philippines recently, where they threw out used, damaged, and wrecked armchairs and burned them. Many people may not fully understand the reason why they did this, but if you're going to have a closer look, and feet on the shoe that they have, you will definitely understand their situation. Their administration is planning to raise the lowest tuition fee in Asia to a certain amount and have these scholar ng bayan to pay more but receive less. They study in fully loaded small classrooms, sit in chairs with deprived condition, and stay in poorly ventilated rooms. It's the deeper message of the students asking their administration not to raise the tuition fee. Being thereby present in that university, the students must be academically excellent, hardworking, and productive, having the opportunity to study paying with the lowest tuition fee rate. With this, PUPians are just saving all the bits of opportunity given to them. Ladies and gentlemen, activism impedes change. But as you can see, these great forms of activism seem so strong, yet reality proves they're so weak, useful, yet ineffective. If change comes from our own selves, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this house will support activists. That's all.
Fellow debaters, to the adjudicator, a blissful day. Let me emphasize the word of our leader. There are other ways to proclaim our complaints. For example, for this is the artistic protest through the power of words and letters. Activists can move people. Implicit activism have proven its efficiency and effectivity going back to our history. Our national hero, Jose Rizal, used pen to activate the spirit of nationalism within our countrymen. My dear friends, let us remember that pen is always mightier than a sword. This house will not support the activism or the activists. The Polytechnic University of the Philippines is noted as the pamantasang utak ng puhunan because of their students who are financially challenged yet deserving for cheap education. Nevertheless, they produce intelligent, competitive, and skilled graduates to different invigorating industries. Last 2010, the PUP was the headline of every newspapers and even the pipes of television for throwing armchairs and tables from the 6th floor down to the ground to hear their call for retaining the 12 pesos per unit policy. And just recently, PUP again rolled out the media for another same thing, which is the tuition fee hike. And so they were mocked as the pamantasan ng mga lumilipad na upuan, leveled up and turned to pamantasang nagpapalipad at nagsusunog ng mga upuan. Another irrational act has been done. Those activists are asking for larger budget cut from the government, destructively protesting for the unfounded information about the tuition fee increase because of the political reasons. Those activists are demanding for better facilities, cheaper education, but what? But what they have done? They wreck the poor and antediluvian chairs and tables of the university. Let us say that those equipments are all damaged and may be considered as garbage. But then, it is a property of the government. It all came from the taxes of Filipino citizens, so they don't have the right to ruin all that stuff. According to the PUP Student Handbook 2007 Revised Edition, Section 17, University Disciplinary Measure 17.6, vandalism, theft, defacing, and other damage to university property or of an individual person's property may be suspended, and worst is the dismissal. And to answer your questions earlier, Medeo Cruz is not protesting. He's relaying a message about the status of the Catholicism here in the Philippines. In addition to what I said earlier, most of the activists in PUP who practice destruction to the university properties are students from the similar academe, or shall I say, the nation's scholar. When we say scholar, we mean intellectual, diplomat, and not barbaric and primitive. Also, activist is synonym for modern, advanced, and innovative. So well, it simply implies that activists would and should have a proper manner in protesting their complaints and requests. Our main concern here is the image of the university and the image of the students. And unfortunately, PUP, as I speak today, has got an unscrupulous notion for their community. They win their arguments to sustain cheap education, but they lose to have a decent image. Ms. Prime Minister, a while ago you are talking about freedom of expression. Yes, we don't want to suppress your opinions, we just want a proper way of expressing it. Another, activists are gripping for change. Change is not a cherry, then that if you will bite it, you will easily feel the spice. Change is a long and winding process. You can protest, then after, you will ask the people to start the change. If you want change, let the change start in you. Actually, activism doesn't cure the problem. They aggravate the problem. From the problem of tuition fee increase into the problem of their bad image. If they really want to solve the problem, don't protest, be a solution, and not a devastation to the university. They are scholar. They should be a model of right conduct and good manners to the youth, especially those who fail to go to school. Implicit activism is enough. Be a good leader, create a good follower, then the change will follow. This house will not support activism. Thank you.
Good day, Madam Chair, and to my fellow debaters. There are people who will never fail to unwittingly mention student activism and violence in the same sentence. But don't you think that they put their lives into risk just to realize us, to know us, that they want change? They want to be the good instrument to change the world. That's why we support activists. The unspoken or implicit activism, as you were proposing, is not enough. Yes, maybe it's used for showing their own opinions and messages from interested people to others, but I don't think it will be functional and as active with the implicit activism. Yes, they can hear and see on what you want to show, but don't you realize that there is a possibility that they can understand or even appreciate your so-called activism in form of arts? Students or activists making noise for their rights in the front of PUP building, for example, is nothing new to the most PUPian. It has been routine for them to either inform or entice students to know about the present issue or the past, as well as there has a big effect on them. But if looking at the other limelight, from shouting to vandalizing on the corners of the university, are these ways and action conducive in resolving such problems? Basically, that is indeed service the government lacks to provide. The answer for this is yes. Activism is not a waste of effort or waste of time. It's being done for a goal. Explicit activism isn't destructive, maybe sometimes, but think of this. Why did they have to disrupt classes just to denounce the proposed tuition hike, for example? And why did they have to burn or destroy school property? It is because the government don't listen. They want to be heard. They want their voices and action to be heard. They want action from the government. or else it will be easy to jump into a newest form of question. Why does students' activism have to be violent? Why are students supposed to bury their noses into books and do what taxpayers tell them to do? Being a student and activist on the other side doesn't mean that we are pushing aside our main purpose, to be an institution, to be a student pursuing hard to gain a degree. Let's just say that student activists are kind of individuals who have a wide range of cognizance and a high level of eagerness to express their insights and perspective about what they think is going to be on the limit or the rights, but not only for their own rights, but as well as the students they are fighting for also. Shamelessness on the part of those who should know better is a form of violence too. And maybe, just maybe, it's ultimately worse and more dangerous than setting armchairs on fire. Students who think activism is a promotion of the school reputation should think outside of the box. Activism is not a crime. It's some kind of eagerness of protecting people from negative effect of policy being implemented by selfish people. I think do something significant and sweat even more. You'll see at the end of the day, everything was worth it. Activism implies change, but as you can see, these big forms of activism seem so strong yet reality proves they are weak, useful and uneffective. If change comes from our own self, we then are activists in our own little ways. So therefore, this house supports explicit activism. Thank you.
Activism promotes change, and they are the so-called active who wants to be an instrument of change. And they do it in two forms. Explicit, wherein they do rallies, protests, strikes, and implicit, that do performing literary and visual arts. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our country is democratic and we have the freedom to express whatever we may feel. But we all know things comes with limitations and activists go beyond the line. Explicit activism is preferred by most of the activists because it is where they can literally express what they feel, march along Mendiola, do chants, and shout at the top of their lungs to be heard by the public. And it comes to the point that they crosses the law, shows violence, and be an image of disobedience. And this is the reason why this house will not support activism. An example we can see are the PUP and activists. These people were very much driven and concerned to the status of that university. Yes, that is a good thing. But because of their so much care, they become overreactive and very aggressive. Last 2010, they threw off chairs from the 6th floor and burned them down. And recently again, they threw off chairs at the 4th floor and burned them down again. Their reason? Those chairs were destroyed and can't be used. Their goal? They want to retain the 12 peso per unit tuition fee. But throwing and chairs and burning them, that is an impolite manner and an unacceptable act. We appreciate there's so much love for the university and its students, and the effort they put into. But the thing is, they can't control their rage. They become violent, and to the extent that it ruins the impression of the people to the university. Why not be more peaceful and friendly? There comes another form of activism, the implicit, where they could write blogs, do websites and forums. They could also compose a song, paint, write a poem, or dance. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we do not support activism, but given that activism is really in your blood, implicit activism could be much better. Why be so destructive when you can be so creative? The sacrifice activists do just for the improvement of the society is not overlooked. But people are tired of watching and hearing them shouting in public. They only look at it now as a waste of time, cause of traffic, people who only seek attention, just simply a nuisance. They can just persuade the people to lend their ears hearing what they're nagging. Then a change could happen. We need the information they give. We admit that. It opens our minds, but what we need more is the application of what we know. Having the knowledge about it but not applying it is just useless. It's like having the formula, but you're just too lazy to solve. Be educated and do the action. Isn't that more helpful and realistic? You can never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Thank you.
We all know that in this mortal world, imperfections are inevitable. We cannot anticipate and expect a perfect leader of government wherein everything will be able to go fine and smooth. We should be ready for the possible action that may be done, whether it may hinder our societal transformation or can lead to community growth. No one can be perfect. As good citizens of our country, we could be an instrument of change by starting the actions in ourselves, by being part of a solution and not a problem, by simply obeying some basic rules and regulations of the government, and by respecting those in authorities. As long as we know the right direction, we just go on. But if the leaders are in the wrong direction, don't be too aggressive. Before taking action, think of the possible consequences first. Explicit ways of activism is not necessary and not that effective. It may just bring destruction. Implicit ways are not enough. Be an example first before implementing the change you want, and the rest will follow. This House will not support the activists because of their wrong ways of promoting change. Thank you.
As we step back and think for a moment what has taken place during this debate, let it be retained in our minds that this House mainly desires societal change and transformation for the improvement of this nation. We can just sit back and watch while our country is metaphorically crumbling into pieces under the leadership of some crooked politicians. We need modern soldiers and heroes to defend and protect and bring awareness to our people. We need the activists. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, this House strongly supports activists and activism, and this House believes that explicit activism is necessary in this country. Thank you.